Hello, today Wina Aaron, son of Fessuh, Hanyun Liu, and I, Abigail Starr, will present our Fall 2024 research project, conducted as a part of the University of Chicago's Data Science Clinic program. Our team partnered with the University of Northern Iowa. Specifically, we worked with Dr. Taraneh Matloob, an associate professor of children's literature at UNI. Dr. Matloob is interested in how power and danger operate within young adult African American novels. Through our partnership, we provide her with the computational support needed to answer her driving research questions. Can we find meaningful changes and patterns in word usage within young adult or YA African American novels? And do power and danger occur differently in YA African American novels than in YA novels by white authors? These questions are important primarily because young adult literature acts as a window and a mirror for young readers, reflecting readers' own experiences and providing insights into the experiences of others. If African Americans novels are routinely characterized by high danger and low power, this may alter how young Black readers form their identities or understand their society. From a data science perspective, most literature studies feature non-computational methodology. Data science tools such as natural language processing offer novel ways to extract meaning and analyze text, particularly of long links. Projects like these advance both how we can study literature and domain-specific methodology. Dr. Matloob's research is largely inspired by the work done in two recent papers. The first, by Peter Dodds, defines the power-danger framework. Dodds argues that meaning in language can be broken down into dimensions or axes. Previously, literary scholars used a three-dimensional space with axes valiance, arousal, and dominance. In his paper, Dodds argues that these axes are non-orthogonal. Specifically, valiance and arousal are correlated and are thus not accurately capturing meaning. Using singular value decomposition, Dodds derived two new orthogonal axes. Power replaces dominance, and danger replaces arousal and valiance, thus the power-danger framework. Applying this framework to various bodies of literature reveals that there is a bias towards weak, safe language, or words low in both power and danger.
The second paper by Wina Aaron draws heavily from Dodds' work, but details the application of the power-danger framework rather than its conceptions. Fodolake creates the time series that show how power or danger score fluctuate across the narrative time. On the right is an example of a danger score time series from the paper. After producing internal mode functions, or IMF, to denote the time series, Fodolake argues that the fluctuation in scores are due to subarcs within longer narratives, not random noise. Another way Fodolake visualized power danger in her paper is through the wuzigrams. These are two-dimensional histograms with power alongside the x-axis and the danger alongside the y-axis. This form of visualization is first defined in Dodds' paper, but our team follows Fodolake's application, as shown on the left, as a guide when creating our own wuzigram. This overlaid text are examples of words associated with certain scores. For example, sorrow is a word with neutral danger, that is neither very safe nor very dangerous, and it has very low power or weakness. Here is a brief overview of the data we used for our research this quarter. Dr. Matloob provides 29 young adult novels and poetry by African American authors and 27 young adult novels by white authors. All novels were Nobel awarded recipients. We also used a table that mapped words to their respective power and danger score. This table was provided by Michaela Fodolake, and a small recreation is shown below.
We wanted to develop a tool that Dr. Matloob could use to process different books in the future. Our Python pipeline streamlines the cleaning, initial analysis, and visualization tasks that would otherwise be repetitive and tedious. The pipeline takes in a folder of raw text files, tokenizes the books, and then applies power danger scores to each token. It outputs an uziogram, time series, and summary stats table for each input. By creating uziograms, we observed that the majority of tokens are clustered around power bins ranging from 0.2 to -0.4 and danger bins ranging from 0 to -0.4. As shown in the example on the right, most words in the Darius and Twig novel have low to mid combinations of power and danger scores. This pattern was consistent across novels by both African Americans and white authors. Thus, we concluded there is no strong pattern outside of the weak safe bias as discussed by Dodds. This time series visualization is also for the novel Darius and Twig by Walter Dean Myers. To effectively highlight underlying trends and features, we use empirical mode decomposition to separate and reduce noise in this plot. The blue line represents the power scores, which are mostly positive but hover around 0, suggesting a relatively neutral tone throughout the novel with small sub-arcs. The red line represents the danger scores, which stay consistently negative and have minor fluctuations, but always remain below 0. This suggests a usage of relatively weak words throughout the novel with small spikes. As with the oozeograms, we observed a very similar trend across all the novels, making this visualization a strong representation of the overall pattern.
We analyzed how power and danger scores fluctuate in 5 randomly selected books from the dataset. Here, the trend lines are more irregular compared to the previous time series because following the approach in Fudolik's paper, we did not apply empirical mode decomposition to reduce noise. Our findings revealed that while each book exhibits distinct fluctuations, the degree of variation remains consistent regardless of the book length. This stands in direct contrast to Fudolik's claims that books of longer lengths experience more fluctuations or sub-arcs, while shorter books typically have one narrative arc. For instance, as shown in the graph, the power scores for The Boy in the Black Suit, which can be seen in purple, have steady variations throughout, suggesting several sub-arcs within the longer narrative, and the power scores for a shorter novel, such as Home is Not a Country in orange, show very similar fluctuations. Similarly, we found that fluctuations for danger scores do not change depending on the length of the book. Some books, like Brown Girl Dreaming, have more consistently lower danger scores, suggesting a more subtle presence of danger/tension. Other books, such as Darius and Twig, show more noticeable peaks and valleys, indicating significant shifts in the depiction of danger throughout the novel and the presence of sub-arcs. We wanted to understand if novels by Black versus white authors had different distributions of power and danger, and in order to do this, we calculated the mean power and danger scores for each book in our data set and visualized their distribution using histogram. Additionally, we provided examples of words representative of the extremes on the x-axis range to contextualize the scores. And here the histograms show that the mean power scores for Black/African American and white authors tend to cluster close to 0, or a neutral sentiment that is, which is neither powerful nor weak. However, Black author scores are slightly higher, while books written by white authors tend to have slightly lower power scores, and this suggests that Black authors use slightly more powerful language than white authors who have a slight bias towards weak language. When looking at the histogram of mean danger scores, books by Black and white authors overlap significantly and are centered around -0.14, showing a similar presence of danger. However, Black authors trend toward more negative values, suggesting a slight bias towards safe language and potentially a more subtle usage of themes that include tension or conflict. And white authors use slightly more dangerous language, suggesting their novels may include more external conflict or threats, such as natural disasters or societal conflict. And overall, we are seeing that the danger scores show limited variations, reflecting consistency in how danger is present across novels. The power scores exhibit greater variation, specifically in the differences between author groups, suggesting more diversity in how power is incorporated into the narratives. Additionally, a 2-sample t-test was conducted on the power and danger scores of books by white and Black authors to determine whether the observed differences are statistically significant, and the results confirmed that they are. Following our analysis, we concluded that there exists a general weak safety bias in novels by both African American and white authors. And interestingly, contrary to Fudolik's findings, shorter novels showed similar evidence of narrative subarcs as longer novels. And when comparing author groups, African American authors trend slightly more towards safe safe and powerful language, potentially emphasizing themes of resilience, empowerment, and community. Meanwhile, white authors tend to use language that is more dangerous and weak, potentially reflecting a focus on external threats, isolation, or individual vulnerability. Thank you for listening.